All right, hello everybody. As you can see in the screen, we're talking today about microinteractions. So please, I know that we just ate lunch and everybody may be feeling a bit full, so it's time to move the muscles, get excited. This is a front end, it's an exciting topic, moving parts, motion, UI. So please, with the raise of hand, who here knows what a microinteraction is? Wow, that's quite an impressive amount. Nice. Nice to see. That's great. So let's set some expectations for this talk. My goal for you guys as front-end developers, that you become a bit more aware to what microinteractions are, what are they composed of, what's their building blocks, or how to build them, and maybe even also have in mind how you can design some microinteractions of your own and implement them on the better side of things to eventually provide an outstanding user experience. All right, so my name is Yonatan Doron, and I'm a front-end developer at CyberX, which is an industrial cybersecurity firm that provides cyber solutions for OT and IT industries. Further, I'm also a community leader of Chodesh Dev, which is one of the bigger developer meetups in Israel. Just a quick side note about Chodesh Dev. This November, we are celebrating a year of activity with the monthly meetups, workshops, and hackathons. And overall, we took over 800 developers from their homes to events, which is it's not so easy. And yeah, that's about it. This is my Twitter handle, Joe Doron. Feel free to DM me if you have any questions, you want to discuss microinteractions, which is something that I'm obviously I like it very much. Feel free to reach out. So, simply put, a microinteraction is a single-use visual cue that draws the user attention to a change in a status or a change in the state of the application or a certain part of the application. And of course, we have examples from the physical world and the digital world, and we're going to see a few of them right now. So I assume most of you have your kettle at home. Maybe it's not this kind of high-end kettle with all the lights and everything, but a kettle is pretty much the best example for a microinteraction from physical world. It's a single-use device. It's practically a whole microinteraction in itself. It has just one button. And you know, it's like this unwritten contract, and it's something that even it's subconscious to us. We approach this the kettle of ours that we like, and we click the button, and the kettle just shows us in its way that its feedback that now the light turns blue, and we understand immediately that right now the water is heating, and soon we can make our coffee or our tea. And this is from the digital world, of course. Another small example is this card that I made that invites the user to interact with it. At first, this card is like, for those of us who have OCD, it's like rotated sideways, and once you hover over it with the mouse, it then goes perfectly straight and changes in opacity. And I don't know, it's like I get, even in this small microinteraction that is maybe not such a practical example, but I find it like elegant or fun to hover over this card. Once it make me maybe want to hover it more, even though it doesn't really do anything. So this is another quick example. And as I mentioned in the beginning, microinteractions is like some kind of my hobby. I really like to discover new microinteractions in the world, in the web, and I do all kinds of experiments, and I reverse engineer very interesting microinteractions that I find just to better learn what are they composed of, and I always learn new things when I do this, and I write about it. And I chose a few experiments that I would like to share with you in this regard. So you have this like some kind of futuristic spinner. Maybe you've seen other variations of this spinner. It would be a good fit for a splash screen before like in the init phase of the application, when it's just initially loaded, or if you click a new tab and you want to go to another section of the app, right? We've got these loading animations. And there's something quite peculiar, quite interesting. It's like we're wired to stare at this. We're hypnotized to stare at these rotating lines, right? We just stare at them, and for some reason we're calm. We're not frustrated because we're bringing a lot of data from the backend. Just waiting. Another example that I actually encountered when I opened my Facebook mobile application. The entire screen of the application is idle. Nothing is moving, no moving parts, no motion. And one day I open the app and I see this like sparkling, shiny effect of like something new, like when you buy a new car and you see these like sparks from the sun, right? And of course, it immediately draws my attention to this new action in my taskbar in the application. And I think it's very, there's a lot to talk about Facebook. It's a very big application, but I think in this specific example, they really made something quite exquisite as I see it. It's not sure if everybody knows about feature discovery. Feature discovery, just briefly, is like a branch of challenges inside user experience design and user experience overall. And it basically means that sometimes you have features that you worked very hard to develop, but for some reason the user doesn't discover them, doesn't use them. And there are all kinds of like creative ways to do proper feature discovery. And I think this is one of like the best examples of how they did it, and it really helped me personally as a user. And of course, this classic mute unmute button that I'm sure everybody knows from Spotify or Netflix, right? Video players, audio players. And this is like something that I created, and I wanted to give more life to, because you can imagine if you saw in various video or audio players that you use, that you have like, you can make this, the change in the status very, very, very fast, like without any animation, and just moving from playing to muted. And it really is, I think, a bit dull, or it provides a poor user experience in my perspective. And I decided to animate it. And what you can see is, it's very clear. It's like you got these sound waves that pop out of the microphone when they go out. They even flex a bit up and down to go to their end location. And now I know that if it was previously muted, I know that now, just from looking at this change, this transition in the status of the microinteraction, I know that now the sound is playing. And vice versa. If I click the playing, the sound waves collapse inside the microphone, and these two lines that like shifting knife, they're rotating to the original position of the sound waves. And now I know as a user that because of my trigger, because of my click, the sound is now muted. Okay, that's interesting, Yonatan, thank you. But where do I begin, right? Like, how do I do it? So after a lot of research and experiments, I managed to map 3 building blocks that I believe will help you in designing and implementing microinteractions. And first and foremost, maybe one of the more important building blocks is feedback. We may immediately think of feedback as some kind of feedback that the user provides to the system or the interface, but it's actually the other way around. It's the feedback that the system and the interface provides to the user, whether it's due to a trigger, like a button that is clicked, or an event that the user did. And even it can be like some kind of pseudo-triggers, like when you open an application and you navigate to a new bar. And this is like a very, I think, common example, a material UI spinner that I think most of us, in some point in our career, in our work, we encounter it. The other very important aspect you can see in this classic Hamburger Icon from the mobile applications, like modern design. So we have this Hamburger icon that really resembles a drop-down, a list that is to be opened, invites us to open this list of actions. And when we click over it, it immediately collapses, all these beam collapse, and then they shift to this X button that now shows us that the only next action that we can do is close this menu once it's opened. And it's really very concise and purposeful transition, I think, in this example, even when it needs to occur over various amounts of times from this active or disabled, and again. A third element is, or building block, is your opportunity and our opportunity as front-end developers to introduce our personality, our humor, or even our brand's identity to the microinteractions that we build. And now we're going to see a few examples of how to do it, or a few good examples of microinteractions that did this. So, anybody can recognize from which company this microinteraction is? Feel free to shout. Anyone? No, not recognizing this heart microinteraction? Oh, we got someone. Yes, that's correct. It's Twitter. It's the famous Twitter heart, right? That it's like a very integral part of Twitter. We click it, and then the heart is like filled with love, and it even scales up a bit, and particles in all kinds of colors, they burst all over. And it's like this, we get this moment of delight, right? Of enjoyment when we click this Twitter heart, even subconsciously, even not thinking about it. It's like an action that we enjoy doing. Another example, this is actually a reverse engineered example. Anybody may recognize which company is behind this microinteraction? Right, okay, that's an improvement, more than one person. Yeah, this is the famous Medium clap. And of course you see, even here, there's like this experience of like particles all over flying when you click this button, right? And it's like the social currency of Medium, how we reward good articles with this button, and of course it's a very integral part of Medium. This is the way that Medium users interact in Medium, and I think it's a very beautiful example of what they did, very unique. Anybody may recognize this company, perhaps? Anybody knows what this thumbs up animation represent? Which brand? Silence in the crowd? MySpace. That's close. But I guess this silence is the silence of agreement, right? Everybody knows this is that this thumb up animation is Facebook. Everybody knows it, and it doesn't really matter if you're from Hamburg, or you're from Spain, or you're from the US. It doesn't matter what language you talk, you immediately look at this microinteraction and you immediately think about Facebook, immediately think about Medium, Twitter, Spotify, right? And what's so unique about these kind of microinteractions, these three microinteractions, if we can think about it? They're instantly recognizable, right? You immediately know this is this company, that company, just by looking at it, by looking at the pattern, at what's going on when you interact with it. Of course, it's an integral part of the application. It's something that on a daily basis, when we interact with the application, we are executing, we are using these actions. And it has this opportunity, right, to imagine that in a company that you work, you'd have this opportunity to take your brand identity and mold it inside some kind of microinteraction in the front end. Wouldn't that be cool? Could be cool. And yes, all these kind of special microinteractions are what's called in the literature, in the world of interaction design, it's called signature moments, or defining moments. And it's really a unique type of microinteraction that is elevated to this status. And I think it's amazing that we have an opportunity as developers to build such amazing things. Of course, there is no like exact recipe of how to do it, but it's very important to know that we can make this. And all right, Yonatan, it's great. You showed us all this like blasting, amazingly designed and implemented microinteractions, but where do we begin? We're front-end developers, maybe we never even thought about, or maybe we knew about the concept, but we didn't try it in practice. And now I'm going to show you a quick code example that I built for this event. And just a quick recap about what's going on here. I chose to implement it with Vue.js, but it really depends on you. You can do it in React, Angular, if you're masochistic in AngularJS. Yeah, you can do it on vanilla JavaScript or whatever. So we've got this like app single file component, Vue single file component, and it's really composed of a template which holds the HTML, script which holds the logic, and a style tag that, of course, holds all the style and CSS rules and classes and everything. And in this template, really, there's just a microinteraction, very original name, Yonatan, thank you, for a component, and it is registered in this component's object. This is how you do it in Vue.js. And inside this component here, all the magic occurs. Okay, let's see the magic. All right, so we have this, and this is the same structure, right? Template, script, and style tag. And we really have this dots container, which is this like gray rectangle with border radius that holds the 3 dots. And inside it, we have a div element that with this is like the Vue way to do a for loop in HTML. And inside it, I expose the index of each dot in this dots array. You see, it's like an array of 3 dots. And I dynamically give these classes with the indexes of like .1, .2, .3. And of course, also pass a unique key. This is another, just an off-topic, but something it's important to know about Vue. It's a way to notify the Vue change detection mechanism that each div is unique and it really can help performance, and it's like a best practice to do it. All right. And another cool thing in Vue is, as you can see, an attribute called scoped that immediately gives me scoped styles. How cool is that, right? And another attribute that is called lang, which can immediately help me write Sass if that's what I want, and usually it's a lot of time the case that I want. With, of course, all the loaders in Webpack and everything. And now we are going to see what's going on here. Okay, so all these idle dots, all I do is just animate them with this bouncy animation, right? And really all it does is, over this duration of time, with a delay of 200 milliseconds, and then we get this like 3 a bit darker gray points that go up and down. And really all bouncy animation does is translates the dots 10 pixels up and down in a loop. And I think you just saw how like simple it is to implement this microinteraction, that those of you who use Facebook, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, like, right, if there's someone that we talked with in Facebook and we asked out on a date, or we really want to get some kind of reply, and we sit on our computer and we stare at this chat window, and we stare at these 3 dots going up and down, right? And we're thrilled, we're excited, and we're waiting for the response, right? Just 3 dots, but what kind of effect it can have on the users, on us. Okay, so as I see it, us front-end developers, we have an opportunity. What's this opportunity? Oftentimes in startups, in small companies, in medium companies, even I saw in large or enterprises, there is what I call some kind of UX void. Many times you have a UX designer that maybe he or she comes 1 day a week to do all kinds of things that maybe in advance they know they're going to do. Maybe most of the times, a lot of the times, the case is that it's like an open source designer that we work with, right? And maybe remotely. But it's not, the main point is, it's not like someone in-house in every company. From what I saw, at least in the startup scene and the small and medium companies in Israel, where I come from, many times you don't have a UX designer in-house, many times it's outsourced. And I think this void is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us front-end developers, especially as I see it with a field of interaction design and microinteractions. Eventually, I think we are some kind of like the gatekeepers of the app, right, of the client side. The designers, the product, all the important people, right, they dream, they think of things, they do sketches, whatever, but eventually, who implements this? Who pushes this code to production? Who is the closest entity to the end user? It's us. We're the gatekeepers. So I think it's time for us to step up and get out of our comfort zone and see how we can, specifically in microinteraction, in this sub-area of UX, how we can become more aware of microinteractions, what are they composed of, and see how we can introduce them, maybe sometimes even design and implement them for a better user experience for our end users. And it's really, it's not like I have 2 or 3 hours to show you all kinds of things about microinteractions. So I wrote this article that is like what I wrote for myself, but also for anybody else who is interested. It's some kind of, like these 10 microinteractions, essential tips to design and implement them. And you are really, really invited to check it out. And we're going to discuss a few points from this article. One point is that microinteractions really need to fit a functional purpose. And you can see this Audi, from the Audi design system, Audi UI blog, you have this button that it invites you to interact with, right? And when you click it, there's like this immediate reaction, immediate feedback from the system to show you that your action was received, that it was accepted to the system. Another very important point is longevity. And for those of you who are not familiar, longevity is a question whether the microinteractions that we build, will they survive the test of time? Will they still be interesting or functional even in the second, the third, the fifth, the nth time that the user interacts with them? Might they become annoying or frustrating to the user? It's something to keep in mind and maybe not overdo it when you design or implement microinteractions. And this is like an example from before, right? The Hamburger Icon, which I think it really keeps this tip in mind. I can imagine myself clicking open the menu, close it, open the menu, close it a few times. And me personally, I know it might be other people experiencing something different, but I think a lot of us can agree it's quite clear and it's quite functional. It's not something that like do it with all kinds of particles and everything. I just want to open a menu, right? Don't overdo it. And of course, eventually, most of us, maybe time will change things, but most of us, we build products for humans, right? We build products for humans. So we need to speak in human language, from the very basic form of language like face expression, language and culture, face expressions, and even onto like more task-specific or audience-specific actions. As you can see in this, for example, this cute login that escorts the user with every action, right? And this bear with his eyes sparkling when you start writing your username, and when you write your password, he hides his eyes, right? Not to see the password. And it's really, you see, if you can like break it down, what do we have here? We have a bit of humor, a bit of personality. And it really, think about it, it's like one of the more, let's be honest, right? Login, it's one of the more frustrating, can be one of the more frustrating moments for us to interact with any system. And this is really, I think, a very creative way of doing it, of speaking human. If you like the points that I just show you, and I promised 10, but I showed you only 3, I really urge you and invite you to check out my article. It's called Microinteractions 101, Essential Tips for Powerful Microinteractions, and it holds all the rest of the points. And you feel free to look at it on Twitter via this link or the QR code. And I'm always open to learn more and improve myself. And if you have any feedback about this article and the points, and you want or you have a question, really feel free to reach out and let's have a discussion and see how we can help front-end developers know better about microinteractions and introduce them to the products that we build. If there's one small thing, but very important, that I want you to take from this talk to your workplace, to your job, next week maybe, I don't know, according to your schedule, is that microinteractions, forgive me for the lame icons, right? Really can be this way of taking a product that is okay. We tolerate it. We can handle it with an okay product. But who wants an okay product, right? And turn it to some kind of product that people fall in love with, that people interact with on a daily basis, like check their Facebook every minute and are wired to it, right? And yeah, I think it's our opportunity. We can do it. And a famous designer he was a very special, like a very known furniture designer called Charles Ames, said this sentence that I think I totally agree with. Maybe it's my personal obsession with the details, but I think it's really the details that matter, right? It is the details that count. It's the small things of the application, and if we make them flawless, we make them delightful, we make them enriching, then the details, they really can make the experience. They can make great moments in digital applications. That's about it. I thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed my talk, and thank you. And now it's some time for questions and answers. We have the runner-up, Gal, with the microphone. If you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question, and Gal will help you with the microphone. Anyone?
Hello. Did you have any production experience with removing interaction which was annoying for the users, or maybe was a great idea for 1 week and later users got annoyed with that?
I don't immediately recall any kind of like specific thing I did like that, but I can really see it's something that can happen, right? And I think it's important. Your question leads to like, doing proper software development with A/B testing and introducing. Yes, of course. I think what maybe would be one of the bigger problems, conceptually, between developers and designers, is the designers are many times the dreamers. They have this like agenda. They have this like amazing experience that they want to provide. And occasionally, in the other side, the developers, we are more practical. We want things to work, to be functional, to work, and then we consider maybe enriching the experience. But I think the right answer is you never know if a microinteraction is too much or is right on the spot. But experiment with it, play with it, introduce it to your users. And during time, I think you will develop some kind of instinct for specifically your users in this application, in this product. And yeah, it needs to be, I think, a joint effort with a group of users at the beginning, and then seeing the feedback and scaling it up to the whole system. Yes.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I have a question. How Or can you elaborate on how important animation is in microinteraction and why it is important, or what would you say to that?
Okay, that's a very good question. And as we said in the beginning, a microinteraction is a single-use visual cue that draws the user attention to a change in the status. And animation is really, I think, pretty much the best or only way to show these transitions in a linear manner, or like very, very clearly we can capture the user's attention to see that now the state is changing with the animation. The animation is a tool that helps us escort the user from state A of the UI to the state B to state C and whatever.
Hello. First of all, a great presentation. I have a question. Maybe I missed it. Could you show us some of your micro interactions? Because, like, you showed us the Facebook, the Twitter, and where do you get the experience from? Like, what's your most amazing? What's the most you're proud of micro interaction you integrated in the system?
Okay. So I'll be honest and say that most of my my work in research is prospecting other very good implementations of microinteractions by usually big companies, but not necessarily not just that. You can see. So I do design sometimes some kind of microinteractions, and I try to introduce them to products that I build and work on. But I didn't bring anything that I felt like was fine enough to this presentation, maybe in time. But I can show you this one, for example. This is my recreation of the medium clap.
Okay.
And I think it's, of course, it's not flawless. It's not 100% perfect, but it's pretty much.
Can we find the code for this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I wrote an article about this as well. It's called How I Implemented, I Recreated Medium Clap. It's in my Medium at Yonatan Doron. All the code is there with sketches and what vector the particles fly to and the randomization and everything. You've got it over there, and you can read it. It's this specifically I wrote in vanilla JavaScript. If you have any specific questions about it after you check it out, feel free to reach out and we'll have a discussion.
Two more questions. Did you find any performance problems during creating these micro interactions? Because I think that they could, take a lot of memory and.
Yeah. Of course, it depends on how many moving parts and how interactive they are. But eventually, even in this more complex example, I think one of the more complex examples in the world, the medium clap, if you try to quantify it empirically, there aren't many elements there. You've got like
this is like CSS or JS also.
JS and CSS together. The JavaScript manages the events, the CSS all the styling rules and everything. And I'm just throwing a number here because I don't remember exactly, but I think about 10, 12 elements that are moving only when you trigger the event, the click event, and resets and fires it again when you click it. There's nothing like specifically in this example that can really affect performance. Of course, which is another field that I'm just starting to research about HTML canvas and performance with hundreds and thousands of elements. There you could have problems with performance. But also there are ways to improve performance and to optimize it. And if you want later on, Yonatan Kara is going tomorrow to talk about exactly this topic. And yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no more questions? We're done? Great. So that's about it. Just a final slide. Yeah, this is me. If you have any questions, you want to chat about microinteractions, which I told you already, it's my hobby. I love doing it more than anything. And feel free to reach out to DM me. Let's have a discussion about it. You can check out my Medium. I did other than the Medium article about the Medium clap, I did reverse engineered other examples. And I always, when I have some spare time, I write more and recreate all other microinteractions. That's about it. Thank you.